CEO of. It is now my greatest pleasure to introduce to you our president of Blarney Toastmasters. Please welcome Denis Murphy.
Yes, indeed. And thank you very much, Matty, for your lovely and very warm welcome and introduction, as you always do, Matty. Okay, so welcome everybody. It's absolutely fantastic to see such a big crowd gathered here tonight in our online room for our Blarney Toastmasters club meeting number 1038, would you believe? So tonight we've a big crowd in the room. I do recall 38 meetings ago, we celebrated our 1000th anniversary. And recently, earlier this year, we had our 1000th meeting. And earlier this year, we celebrated the 50th birthday party of the foundation of our fantastic Toastmasters Club. And tonight has that feel of a celebratory mood to it as well. And therefore, it's great to see such a big crowd present to participate and to hopefully enjoy a very good and a very productive meeting. We have one speech tonight. We have our table topics, of course, as always. But the highlight of tonight, I've no doubt about it, will be the panel discussion. Moira O'Brien will be moderator in the panel discussion. So I must admit it's something new for me. I haven't experienced such a meeting before. So I'm absolutely looking forward to it and can't wait to get the ball rolling now in a minute. Before I do that, before I hand over to our Toastmaster for the evening, I must, as always, thank Paul O'Mahony for the organisation of the agenda and the roles, etc. For tonight's meeting. It is definitely not an easy task, but Paul does it for every meeting very effectively and with very little fuss. So well done there again, and thank you for all the good work that you do, Paul. So now, at this moment in time, I hope everyone enjoys their meeting tonight. And thank you, of course, for being with us. And it is my pleasure to hand over to our wonderful Toastmaster for the evening. And that is tonight, Roman Us. So come in there for us, Roman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. To introduce today's agenda. The theme of the meeting is standing up for yourself. That means advocating for your rights, needs, and beliefs in a firm and respectful manner, also known as assertiveness, and is about expressing your opinions and standing firm in your values, even in the face of opposition. But first, I'd like to invite our welcome guests to introduce themselves briefly. Just a few words about yourself, where you're from, and whether you are a Toastmasters Club member or not. So please, Rob Peck, would you be pleased to tell us a couple of sentences about yourself?
Sure. I've been a member of Toastmasters off and on since 1969, with time off for looking after my kids. I'm a member of Bay Street Breakfast Toastmasters Clubs, which is fully online, but I also drop in regularly to Salisbury Speakers in Salisbury, England, and to Sunrise Toastmasters in Portland, Oregon. And I'm delighted to be here. I first met Paul last year at the District 91 Toastmasters Convention online.
Thank you very much, Rob. And I'd like to ask Ryan Cuthbert from Ireland, would you be pleased to tell us briefly about yourself?
My name's Ryan. I just recently joined Toastmasters last week was my first official week, and I actually went to the same Toastmasters that Paul did. In it, he told me about this online meeting, and I thought it would be an amazing opportunity. So I asked Paul today if I was able to join, and he graciously allowed me to. So I'm really thankful for Paul.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. Toastmaster, just a small suggestion. I know our normal practice is to invite each of the guests to say something, but if we do that, I'm afraid it'll be about 20 minutes before we start the panel discussion. So perhaps we could postpone that to a mixture of during the break and maybe leave it to the president at the end to invite comments. Would that be agreeable to you, Mr. Toastmaster?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Paul. This is very good opinion, I think, to make this change. So let's follow to our agenda. And as Mr. President of the Blarney Toastmasters Club mentioned, we have two official parts of our meeting. In the first part, we have one prepared speech as discussion, and then we will have an impromptu speaking practice to give an opportunity all members and guests to speak table topics. And then we will have a short refreshment break for 5 minutes maximum. And after break, in the second part, we will have evaluation of speeches, reports of roll holders, and overall evaluation by the general evaluator. Our general evaluator today is Lynn Gilbert. Lynn will lead the second part of the meeting and lead the team of evaluators. Our timekeeper today is Violeta Saladiene. Please, Violeta, introduce briefly your role and how are you going to carry it out. So. We can't hear you.
Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and guests. As a timer, I will time table topics, speakers, formal speeches, and evaluations. I will also alert each speaker of the time they have left using the red, yellow, and green cards. Sorry, the green, yellow, and red cards. So when the speaker, for example, table topic speaker, should limit their remarks to no more than 2 minutes. At 1 minute, I will raise a green card. At 2 minutes, I will show the red card. And at 1 minute, 30 seconds, I show yellow, yellow or amber card. Then when there is a speeches, today we have a panel discussion, which is, I believe, 20 minutes long. So that timing should be a little bit different.
Correction, timer, the panel discussion is 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
And I'll send you the times for the lights in the chat.
Lovely. So yes, so for the 40 minutes, yeah, please. Then I know how to time it. And for regular speeches, usually it's 5 minutes. Then I show green light. For 6 minutes, yellow light. And for 7 minutes, red light. So all of all, it's pretty much this. And I hope you will enjoy the speeches. And I will declare all the times as at the end of each speech or at the end of prepared speeches when it's time for me to do that, when Toastmaster asks me to do that. Otherwise, I put all the times of the speeches in the chat. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Violeta, for the introduction of your role and all details. What are you going to do on your role? Our grammarian role for today's meeting, our grammarian is Hindson. Please, Wins, introduce briefly your role and function of the show.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, Toastmasters, and fellow guests. As grammarian, it's my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their use of language. I'll take note of any improper language, as well as outstanding words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts. I shall come back to this last point shortly. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce word of the day based on the meeting theme of standing up for yourself. For today's meeting, the word is vindicate, which is a verb. The meaning of vindicate is to prove that what someone said or did was right or true after other people thought it was wrong. An example of vindicate could be the decision to include John in the team was completely vindicated when he scored 2 goals. Every speaker this evening is encouraged to use this word. If you do not get an opportunity to speak, I shall be checking your thinking to make sure you have at least been mulling over this word. The English language is a graceful and exquisite ballerina, poised to perform with even greater finesse under the influence of your words this evening. I am confident that your eloquence will inspire her to leap with heightened grandeur and twirl with added sophistication. Thus, I humbly implore you to tread lightly, preserving her delicate toes from the weight of misplaced words, pronunciation, or articulation. I will give the grammarian's role when called on later during the meeting and also report usage of word of the day. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Vince, for introduction of your role. And also we have a counter role for today's meeting. Our counter today is Tamara Evans. Please, Tamara, introduce briefly your role and how are you going to carry it out?
We'll be trying to combine listening attentively so that I can get some takeaway from today's meeting. And at the same time, the other part of my brain will be counting this problematic instead of just silence. But I hope that the most important today will be to hear the words, the meaningful words of all the speakers that will touch our hearts and stay in our memory. And ahas will be kind of secondary, but I will still be counting them and report later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Now I'd like to ask first evaluator to introduce the first speech. Denis Murphy, please. The first evaluator.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Okay, so our first speech tonight is going to be moderated by Moira O'Brien, our distinguished Toastmaster, Moira O'Brien. And Moira is going to moderate a panel discussion on any topic. And the topic that Moira has chosen is democracy dead? Now, Moira has a few panelists, which she'll introduce as she goes through it. And this is from the pathway of divisionary communication. We're looking forward to this. So it is my pleasure to hand back to you, Mr. Toastmaster, to introduce Moira again and to get the show on the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, first evaluator and Mr. President, Denis Murphy. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Moira O'Brien. Just one moment. According to agenda, Moira O'Brien Moira's speech entitled "Is Democracy Dead?" The panelists, it will be panel discussion. Panelists Alex McCarney, Vicky Trabosh, and Paul O'Mani. This speech prepared according to Visionary Communication Pathway, Part 5, moderate a panel discussion on any topic. Please welcome Moira O'Brien. Is democracy dead?
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. Welcome, welcome all. I'm delighted to see so many people here tonight to listen to this very important discussion about democracy. Is democracy dead? Now, I hope that the discussion will vindicate my decision to choose this subject. Let me introduce the panelists tonight. In alphabetical order, our first one is Alex McCarney. Now, when Alex is not busy with his day job or assisting his executive team and fellow Toastmasters, he travels the world virtually, discovering Toastmasters from all over the world. He's been invited to present to clubs in Ireland, Australia, Antigua, and Pakistan. He's happily jumped into the deep end and thrilled to any speaking or leadership challenge presented to him. And he particularly loves the creativity and rigor of Beyond Words Advanced Toastmasters Club. Next on the scene is Mr. Paul O'Mani. Paul joined Toastmasters in 2015. After 30 years of working in the UK, he now lives in Cork. This year, he's Vice President of Education in Blarney Toastmasters. He's VP Membership in Toastmasters for Golf and President of One Country, One World. Paul is a poet, a podcaster, a dog walker, a golfer, and, he says, a gin taster. Last but not least, Vicky Trabosh. As a lifelong American, Vicky Trabosh shares your confusion about the state of democracy in the United States. She's a successful executive coach with her own business. She's been described as a woman of substance. However, she's here today to offer her insights on what changes are necessary to create a better world. Okay, that's your panel for tonight. The subject of tonight's discussion is the question of whether democracy is dead. And whatever your political beliefs, I'm sure that you will all agree that democracy is definitely under threat in many ways. And I'm sure we'll be exploring some of these tonight. An organization called Varieties in Democracy has noted that 42% of the world's population now lives under autocratic rule, which is up from 33% a decade ago. I just thought I'd throw that in to pique your interest. Well, now we, as in your panel, live in the United States of America, in Canada, in Ireland, and I'm also a UK citizen as well as Irish, all of which are nominally democracies. But let's find out from our panelists what they think about their own countries. So let's start off with Alex. Tell me what you think of the state of democracy in Canada.
Well, I believe that the state of democracy in Canada is quite vibrant. Is democracy dead is the question overall. And I don't know if democracy is dead, but like a cat, it has 9 lives, 8 of which probably have been extinguished, but I want to vindicate myself a little bit here. The Canadian democracy is it's actually a very recent democracy. Canada only truly became independent from England in 1982 with the Constitution Act. Yes, since the Statute of Westminster in 1931, since the Confederation in 1867, according to the British North America Act, yes, we've had democracy. And we've had actually a number of democracies. There are provinces which are democratic institutions. And there's the Federation, which is also a democratic institution. I believe it makes for a very robust and strong succession. For instance, until very recently, our Prime Minister was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And whoops, all of a sudden, because here's a nice Irish word for you, because all of the malarkey that has been wafting around the halls of Parliament and assemblies everywhere. This Canadian democracy has been able very quickly to take Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Right Honourable, who served with great distinction, to the Right Honourable Mark McCarney, former Governor of the Bank of England, former Governor of the Bank of Canada, and now a bare-knuckle brawler in the institutions of debate. I believe that our wonderful democracy will go forward, will go from strength to strength wherever we are. We will never be a 51st state. We're never the 51st anything. We are one. We are Canada. Back to you.
Thank you, Alex. Let's move on to your neighbor down below, Vicky Trabosh. Vicky from the United States of America. Vicky, how's democracy doing in America?
Madam Moderator, fellow panelists, and all who are observing this discussion, welcome. I cannot vindicate the current position of the U.S. on the world stage, but I can tell you what I think about the state of democracy in the United States. In many ways, democracy in the U.S. is still strong. We hold regular elections, we have a free press, and a tradition of an independent judiciary. Now remember, I said tradition. But we also face great challenges. Our politics are deeply polarized. Trust in institutions is waning, and some Americans feel disconnected from the system that is supposed to represent them. Democracy here is functioning, but not flourishing. Now, I'd like to state I have no explanation for our current national leadership at this time. But what I realized from this last election is that national issues were not the driving force. Personal politics trumps, if I must say it, public politics. This is why we have the president we have today. President Trump touched the personal fears of many individuals, and the old adage, if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes a truth, is evident in the world today. On this idea of politics becoming personal, you know, many of us do not care about the price of eggs. I've been cooking for over 60 years. I won't ask you to do the math on my age, but I'm old. If I need eggs, I go and buy them. I don't really care what the price is. I am not choosing between the cost of gas and childcare and rent and electricity. But in this country, where only about 50% of the people are invested in the stock market or 401ks, our savings scheme for retirement, 50% are struggling, at least struggling, because they have no money. They literally live paycheck to paycheck. And when you have a leader come on this world stage and say,
You are losing. You need to listen to me. Trust me, I will make things better. People voted from their personal fears. So for me, it is a conundrum of what has happened. I am watching the news as you all are. And while I love Canada, let me just say, and I love the fact that Canada is standing up so powerfully to the voice that is our human horn right now of Trump. I want to tell you that good people make a difference. And we are all here today because we wonder, will our voice make a difference? And I would like to submit that yes, one voice can change the world. Back to you, Madam Moderator.
Moira, you can't be heard.
Thank you. I muted myself out of respect to Vicky. I should have paid attention to myself, shouldn't I? Thank you, Paul. Paul, I'm going to ask you to comment on both Ireland and the UK, as you've had so much experience of UK politics, and you've lived in Ireland, in the UK for a long time. So perhaps you can give us a short insight into democracy as it is in Ireland and the UK.
Thank you. Democracy arrived very recently in both Ireland and the UK, and it arrived in Ireland before it arrived in the UK. Democracy arrived in Ireland in 1922, which was the first time that every man and every woman in Ireland got a vote. And in the UK, it didn't arrive until 1929. So there we are. It's, look, what is democracy? Because this is really important. Otherwise, I'm not sure what anybody will be saying about democracy. It's got at least three characteristics: competitive elections, and both of those countries have competitive elections. Irrespective of how many years a party is in power, there's always competition and has been. There are political freedoms: the right to protest, the right to march, the right to form political parties, very important constituent of democracy that exists in both of the countries. There is an independent judiciary in Ireland, even though the appointment of High Court justices is subject to the government deciding among a list of nominations that are submitted to it who shall be a High Court judge in Ireland. But that's perhaps a detail. Perhaps it's a little bit of a weakness in the Irish democratic system. In the UK, there's a bit of a weakness in relation to independent judiciary, since there are the highest court in the UK is in the House of Lords, and it may be that how you get to be a law lord is in some way influenced by the government. So that would be another slight weakness there, but that's not enough to constitute a democracy in my definition of democracy, because in order for there to be anything like the kind of democracy that any of you would like to live under, I believe there has to be, and this is a part of my definition of democracy, a concern for human rights. Human rights. Ireland is a subscriber to the European Declaration of Human Rights. The UK has its equivalent. Notwithstanding Brexit, UK law is still influenced by decisions of the European Court of Human Justice. An interest in economic equality. This is, to me, I'm not saying that democracy has to be characterized by economic equality. That's never existed in any society in the whole of human history. But a concern for it and a movement towards it, away from a massive inequality of wealth in the society, is, in my view, a consideration, and concern for social justice. So if you put each of those things together, I think it's possible to say that Ireland has a flourishing democracy. Flourishing democracy, imperfect in some ways, like, for example, there is a whole ethnic group in Ireland, the travellers, who have lower life expectancy, lower education, poorer health, considerable margin between them and what is called the settled community. That's a matter of concern, and that's a weakness in our democracy, in my opinion. Within the UK, is there any ethnic group against whom there is significant discrimination? Well, I think not. I think there is, the UK is a terrific model of human rights. Not to say that there aren't racists and highly prejudiced people walking around in the society. Not to say that there isn't a kind of a risk that the Reform Party, which has got a large tradition of racism and anti-immigrant views in it. But by and large, I would say that the UK and Ireland are both flourishing democracies. That would be my view. I stand, I think, in that respect, very close to what Alex said about Canada. And I will have to pass in relation to the United States, because I'm torn in relation to the role of populism and the role of liberalism. And that's another aspect which we might come on to a bit later on.
Thank you, Paul. Now, just a slight correction. The law lords ceased to exist in 2009 because they then created the Supreme Court in the UK. But I'm still not wholly discovered how they are elected. But they all come from serving barristers. Okay, now there was one thing that you brought up there, Paul, which I want to discuss a bit further in respect of both Alex and possibly Vicky, and that is the issue of minorities. Now, I know in Canada there is a significant issue, let's say, around Indigenous rights and reconciliation, and I would be surprised if the same didn't actually apply in the United States. So, Alex, would you like to say a few words on that?
Well, thank you. In fact, I'm speaking to you from what is called Montreal, but in fact, it is unceded territories of Mohawk. And we live within a stone's throw of many Mohawk communities. The Canadian response has been appalling, frankly. And there's a saying that we are as good as the way we treat our most vulnerable. Who are the most vulnerable in Canada? The unhoused, the Indigenous, the unjustly imprisoned. All of those are, as a matter of fact, highly disproportionately Indigenous people. Now, there's also a question between minority languages. I'm a minority English speaker in a minority French area of a nation of about 40 million people. Very interesting, the whole Canadian geopolitical scene and the reasons why we are here and where we are here is so interesting. From the intolerable acts that were intolerable to the Americans, the Quebec Act of 1774, which in fact created this place. But all of that was originally swindled by the Crown and by corporations. Therefore, it is with some shame, but some hope that we will go forward respecting each and every constituency in our country. And I believe that we have many initiatives in that respect. And there's so much happening now. And I'm very delighted and proud of that aspect of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Vicky,
Not quite sure how to help you with that.
I do apologise for she who must not be named in coming in there. Vicky, is there such a major political issue in the United States with minority population? I would guess that immigrants or undocumented might be one of those populations.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to acknowledge that when European settlers arrived in the Americas, historians estimated there were over 10 million Native Americans living there. By 1900, the estimated population was under 300,000. It is arguably one of the largest genocides in the history of the world, and we go past it. I remember reading when President Trump got reelected, I was not pleased with the results of the election, but someone put on Facebook, the arbiter of all things, for 400 years, the Native Americans in the United States have been dealing with injustice. You're going to be okay. So to your question, yes, the indigenous population of this country is still under threat, has been treated terribly, and lives on the worst land in the worst ways, and is subject to many tropes and terrible titles that are not correct. This entire country was built on immigrants. And as someone who came from Germany, my family, I'm an immigrant. We are all immigrants. And yet something has changed in this country where there is I am an American and you are an immigrant. And we need to go from ego to we go. I have many, many friends. I work in the country of Rwanda in East Africa. I know the diaspora in Rwanda who live here in Portland, Oregon, and they are afraid. They are US citizens and they are afraid. They're afraid to go out. This is insane. We also have friends from Colombia, a young family we've sort of taken in, and they are here legally and they are afraid. This country's attitude about different religions outside of Christianity and different colors of skin and nationalities other than the white American is appalling to those of us who see people as equals. Again, I have more questions than you probably all do about what's going on. But this is probably going to be my theme, is that when I hear hate speech, I speak up. Short story, I was in the airport one day going through TSA pre, which is our system that you can go through faster. It was closed. We all had to get in the regular line. So we had to take off our shoes, our belts, kind of get undressed. I'm like, okay, it's okay. The woman in front of me was not happy. She was evidently better than us and was very upset she couldn't go through TSA pre. So we went through, and she's standing on the other side waiting for her things to come through the metal detector. And there was a tall white kid and a young Black woman, very petite, who were TSA agents. And the young girl said something to the woman. And I was right behind her, and I heard her, and the woman said, "Stop mumbling." And I know that was about the way the woman spoke, not that she was mumbling. And it just came out of me. And I said, and I sounded like her mother, and she was my age, which was very funny. I go, "What did you just say to her?" And she startled, and she said, I couldn't hear her. I said, "That is not right. That is not true." And she gathered her stuff very quickly and kind of ran off. And the young girl said to me, because the TSA agents can't speak up, they can't say anything to passengers. She said, "It's okay." And I said, "It is not okay. None of us needs to be treated as less than." It's probably more subtle in our country than others, but it must end.
Okay, let's get back to the question of the evening. And what do you think are the threats to democracy in your country? Alex, let's start off with you.
Well, quite frankly, the threats to our country are espionage, interference. We have India interfering, China, the United States of America. Our biggest threat to democracy really is our southern neighbor, in my view. I really see many Canadians getting together and really pulling together, but it's dark days. Our economy is severely damaged and will continue to be damaged. Supply chains in the automotive sectors in Canada and Mexico are mothballed. There are have been a number of thousands of layoffs in Canada. Thousands are portended in the United States of America. And we really are appalled, and we really do see America as a threat, even to the extent of militarily. So yes, it is a serious situation here. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, do we have similar threats to democracy in Ireland?
No. There are no significant threats to democracy in Ireland for a number of reasons, I think. It would take a massive juggernaut to change the democracy that we have in Ireland. Can you just imagine the end of press freedom? Can you imagine the end of the independence of the judiciary in Ireland? We don't have a president who has the ability to sign an order which will cause laws to be changed or cause legal companies to have to change policies in order to deal with our government. No, we don't. We do have massive threats to standard of living, no question about that. And even before the international threats that we're all aware of in relation to tariffs, Ireland has a massive housing problem. Huge numbers of people are unable to purchase or even rent a place to live of their own. You can't come out of university or even come out of home and go straight into your own place, even living in a pretty crummy bedsit. No, there's a massive housing problem in Ireland. There's also a massive health problem in Ireland. So the country is like many, many other countries. We also are going to miss our climate targets by 1,000,000 miles. So we're going to have to pay huge amounts of money in fines. So that's not about democracy, though. That has nothing to do with democracy, in my opinion. It's entirely undesirable that the country's standard of living should go downwards. But the very recent developments of marriage equality, the right to control your own body by women, the health of your own body, a lot of even the right to end a marriage. These things are all very recently, including the right to birth control. These are all advances that have taken place in Ireland since I have been born, or even since I've been half my age. So no, I see no significant threat. There are, of course, people, racists out there. There are, of course, misogynists out there. There are, of course, people who are homophobic and anti-gay people and lesbian people and all the other acronyms that I've gone out of my head this very second. But yes, no, I think there's no threat at all in Ireland, by the way.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to leave you to last, Vicky, because possibly there's something slightly more obvious in the United States. But let's go to Canada. Are there threats to democracy in Canada, do you think, Alex?
Yes, I think I answered that question first just before Paul. So I would love to cede my time over to Vicky.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
No worries.
Vicky, United States. Well, we've seen a lot of happenings recently, but let's put Trump aside just for the moment and look at it more generally.
right.
What are the more general threats to democracy?
As you mentioned, there are several. One is disinformation, especially online, is distorting the public understanding of what's going on in this country. And I do want to touch on these massive tariffs that are being created, and posturing is creating chaos in the world, much to the apparent glee of the current administration. How does that affect democracy in the US? It affects our reputation. Who are we if we're not a strong force that knows how to move forward? Voter suppression and gerrymandering are weakening the principle of fair representation. Let me explain gerrymandering for those of you who don't know. Every 10 years, this country has a census. And then the states redraw their regional, legislative, and congressional districts because as communities change, redistricting is critical to our democracy. Maps need to be redrawn to ensure that districts are equally populated and comply with laws such as the Voting Rights Act. These are otherwise representative of a state's population. Now, done right, redistricting is a chance to create maps that, in the words of John Adams, their exact portrait, a miniature of the people as a whole. But sometimes the process is used to draw maps that put a thumb on the scale to manufacture election outcomes. And rather than voters choosing their representatives, gerrymandering empowers politicians to choose the voters. This tends to occur especially when line drawing is left to legislatures and one political party controls the process. So that's a huge problem. And we also have an erosion of democratic norms, like the peaceful transitions of power, which has created dangerous precedents in this country. The money in politics continues to distort priorities. The number of billionaires who are in politics in the US right now is breathtaking. And they are the proverbial tail wagging the dog, and the US is the dog. There's also a rise in political intimidation and extremism, which I find deeply worrying. Madam Moderator.
Thank you for that. So let's look to the future now. And I have one difficult question, which I'd like to ask first. And that is there actually a viable alternative to our present forms of democracy? Is there another system? I used to say that my favorite political system was a benevolent dictatorship. But of course, as we all know, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So is there any alternative, viable alternative to our present forms of democracy? And who would like to answer that first? Go ahead, Alex.
Yes, thank you. Well, in preparation for this little discussion among friends, I referred back to the Republic of Plato and all of the whole notion, his notion of democracy, which in fact he thought was, from my reading of it, a substandard way, because there were all of the myriad problems that we've all been discussing. And then he talked about the whole notion of the philosopher king and the benevolent dictator, exactly as you put. Quite frankly, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've seen a magnificent exemplar of democracy where they went and started tinkering with it. It wasn't broke, and they sure as hell didn't fix it. I hope to God that any other democracies around the world will not take what's going on down south as any example of a good way to go forward. I don't know if there's anything that can really, as a system. I think, though, what we can do is try to inculcate in our families, in our friends, in our co-workers, in our loved ones, compassion and respect. And we talk in Toastmasters about integrity, respect, service, and excellence. These are great bywords, but I'd like to make them incarnate. I'd like them to come alive in each and every one of us. And if we could do that, I think that would save a great deal of grief. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I'm delighted you brought in the Toastmasters ethical things. Vicky.
Well, I'd like to speak a moment on benevolent dictatorships. I have seen them be of value when a country is under threat and the leader must make decisions. The trouble is they go less from benevolent after the crisis is over to more dictatorship. So it's not really a solution. I don't know that I see an alternative to democracy, but my vision for the future of democracy is that democracy needs to evolve. We can't just defend old systems. We need to reinvent them to meet today's challenges. And now that might mean integrating new forms of participation like citizen assemblies, making space for marginalized voices, and ensuring digital rights are protected. Democracy isn't a finished product. It's a living system that needs care and adaptation. So rather than replacements, I think there are enhancements that we need to explore. Deliberative democracy brings citizens into deep, thoughtful conversations about politics. It's a school of thought in political theory that claims that political decisions should be the product of fair and reasonable discussion and debate. Participatory budgeting allows communities to directly decide how public money is spent. It's a democratic process that allows community members to be empowered to identify, discuss, and prioritize public spending. And we also need to look at digital democracy tools that could help us reimagine representation. Digital democracy, also known as the internet democracy, is the adoption of technology in the governance process. It's the application of digital tools to enrich political interaction. And though we have alternatives and enhancements, we still must hold fast to the core values of freedom, accountability, participation, and equality.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Violeta, how much time do we have left? And you're muted.
Moira, would you like to ask me? Would you like to carry on as soon as the red light
I
goes?
just wanted to know how much time we have left, so that I want to give you as decent a run at this as possible.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, Paul, you have 2 minutes. Fire away, Paul. What's your vision for the future of democracy?
All right. I think there are several alternatives to democracy, and they exist in the world today. China and Russia are two examples that are not democratic and that seem to be viable regimes. What are the chances of Ireland or either of the other countries turning into similar models? Personally, I doubt it myself. Now, there is a difference between being dead permanently and being temporarily dead. I mean, Lazarus was temporarily dead, but he rose from the dead. There are a number of examples of democracy rising from the dead. After all, Germany was had many of the qualities of a democracy, and it was snuffed out by the Nazis. Snuffed out. That was the end of democracy in Germany, but it is back again. So it didn't die permanently. Chile is another example. The United States played a major role in ending the Chilean democratic revolution. So what is viable, on the other hand? I mean, it's easy enough from a complacent position for me to say, no, everything's fine, everything's fine. But as I think it was Vicky said at the beginning, or perhaps it was yourself actually who said at the beginning, many countries in the world do not have what we have been talking about. In other words, democracy, do not have a commitment to free press. India, a huge, biggest amount of voting in the world, has some of the trappings of democracy. But what is going on in India today is hardly compatible with notions of having a free press, having political parties and a sense of human rights and social justice, hardly at all. So I think democracy in many parts of the world is barely alive. In other parts, it's on life support. And we do need to be continuously vigilant. Vigilance is so important. If we are not vigilant, democracy won't be viable. It appears to be viable. I don't know a country which I think is about to lose total democracy, with the exception of Hungary. It is arguable that Hungary is no longer a democracy because the judiciary are no longer independent of the government, and many of the policies of that country are a result of autocracy. So in answer to your question, do I see anything viable in the future? I see other forms that seem to be terribly strong. Hopefully, we will do what Vicky wants to do and what Alex says already exists to a certain extent, which is to make democracy better, give it a bit more Guinness and a bit more of a drop of the hard stuff. And we may very soon need to ensure that there is a lot more of the hard stuff going around in some places. Back to you, moderator. You have to unmute, Moira. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Paul, thank you, Paul. We now have to wind up because our time is up. So I will just give a very brief summary. I think the state of democracy in our present countries is under threat, but by no means on life support yet. But there are signs around the world that democracy is being challenged, let's say. But I think, personally, I think democracy is strong enough to withstand, certainly in Western countries. I do worry about the influence of social media and the huge polarization that we are seeing, and the gap between left and right, but also the huge gap between the very, very rich and the rest of us. On that somewhat pessimistic note, I'm going to thank you all for contributing to this interesting discussion and hand you back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Moira, for your speech, for this wonderful panel discussion. And to all panelists, Alex, Vicky, and Paul. Now let's have a minute for you all to send your comments and recommendations to the speaker via chat. Please, Timekeeper, give us 1 minute.
Is somebody sharing their screen? No. Okay.
Yes, they were, Paul, but no longer.
I thought we had been Zoom bombed.
One minute is up.
Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. Now it's time for impromptu speaking practice, table topics. And I'd like to invite our table topics director, Matty, Behan, to introduce and start it. The floor is yours, Matty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Topics Master. Most, if not all, of my table topics tonight will be on democracy. My first question I would like to put to Chuck, please. Chuck, if you'd like to take this table topic. I would ask you, which is the most difficult to achieve? Creating a democracy or holding on to a democracy? Chuck.
Ooh, thank you so much for that table topics question. And I hope I don't have to vindicate my comments by making something that I shouldn't be saying. Creating a democracy, I don't feel is that hard, but maintaining that democracy is something that you have to nurture and you have to stay on top of, because it can go by the wayside so easily. And creating it, you draw up that document. Yes, there was a lot of discussion when the United States was formed and they had the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and all that. But I still feel that each and every day, this democracy is challenged. And it's challenged sometimes for good reasons. And it's also challenged for bad reasons and reasons that, right now that it's under siege. And it seems kind of hopeless at times that we don't have a voice, those that are challenging it and questioning it, because it just seems like everybody's just turning over, and flipping over in their grave in Washington, D.C., and not really caring what's going on. And even the courts are under the control of somewhat under the control of the executive branch, which they shouldn't be, because there are three separate branches of government. So I really feel that it's the maintaining of it and the nurturing of it after it gets started. That's probably the most important thing to me about a democracy. And instead of setting it up, it was easy, but maintaining it, not so much. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you very much for that answer, Chuck. May I just say to the Violeta, the timer, in order to get as many topics in as possible, could I say that we are having just a 1 minute answer, not 2 minutes. So just a 1 minute answer, please.
Okay, yes.
This is a question to Larry Lyons. Larry, if we say that Toastmasters is democratic, why then are the subject of sex, religion, politics, and racism not allowed to be discussed? Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. I've heard that many times. And when I joined Toastmasters way back in 2007, it was one thing that was told to me. However, being a District 71 parliamentarian, I have examined all the governing documents, policies, and I haven't come across it written down anywhere, unless it's in very, very small print. So while I think it should be treaded on carefully, I think it's no harm to discuss these issues, and we're discussing them here tonight. So this panel has vindicated their decision that doesn't exist at all, Mr. Topics Master. So away with the fairies, drink more Guinness, and stand up for yourself. Over to you, Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Larry. Is Bill Hayden still here? I just can't find him on the screen.
Yes, he is here, Matty. And
Oh,
for Larry, there is a document disparaging that belief that they are not forbidden and that it is up to the local clubs to decide those particular issues.
Right, Bill, thank you for that add-on. I will now move to, I'm just trying to find her name here. She was from America on the panel. And sorry, up being able to, oh yeah, there you are. Vicky, can I give you this topic, please? It's regarding fake news. Is fake news proper in a democracy?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. When I was getting my thesis completed recently for my master's, we were told to double check the news. That when we used sources for our research, we could not go to Wikipedia. We had to find the actual source. Many people, I would submit, are lazy. They hear one thing, they spread it. Now, if something is too good or too bad to be true, it usually is. So I think we must personally decide when we hear a message, what will we do about it? Will we take it as fact or will we do research? It has been my experience in the last few years that I don't take anything at face value. I find the research behind it. And when you get to the source, you often find it has been distorted. So fake news is real, but it's up to us to make sure that we fight it individually.
Thank you very much for that reply, Vicky. May I ask a question, a topic of Angela Cook? Angela, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, great, Angela. You are from Mexico, I believe. And I seen on a map in President Trump's office that the Gulf of Mexico is now called the Gulf of America. What is your country, what is your people going to do about that? Will you accept it or will you fight for it to be the Gulf of Mexico?
Thank you so much for that topics master. First, I have to give a bit of a sliding aside because I am an expat resident in Mexico, and as an expat resident in Mexico, I am not allowed to participate in politics in any way. However, of course, I hear everything and see everything. We have a brand new president, a woman president, who is quite strong. She has spoken out very much against the United States, of course, at this point in time. However, it's mostly a wait and see. And I'm not familiar at all with the renaming of the Gulf of California or the Caribbean Sea or anything else that Mr. Trump has his fancy. I'm not familiar with that. We don't get a lot of news. Well, we do get a lot of news, but I don't listen to it. Fake news.
Thank you very much, Angela, for that reply. My next table topic I would like to ask of Rob Peck from Canada. Rob, the President of America is putting a lot of pressure on Canada to become the 51st state of America. Is that progressive? What would you personally be prepared to do to stop it? Would you go out marching? Would you take up ammunition if it even came to that? What would you personally be willing to do?
Matty, I would certainly defer any decision like that for the present. I don't think it's come to that. What I will do is I will vote in the upcoming elections for a politician and a political party that will strongly argue to support Canada and its independence. I think we have the best possible candidate available right now, and I will be voting for the party that I think will support Canada. I don't think it's come to anything military yet, but I don't rule that out. But I would certainly be willing to march if it gets closer to that sort of a problem. For now, I have high hopes that our present government can make the case for us to stay independent.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Rob. Nicola, will you take a table topic, please? You're from Texas, I see.
I am. Yes, I'll take you.
Now, because of the election of Trump, it is stated that women who become pregnant and whose pregnancy runs into difficulty will not get the health benefit that they would be due, and that pregnant women the doctors won't give that help, and women could be left dying and bleeding in car parks. Is that really, can you really call America a democracy if that was to take place?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. I think in Texas, we're a little bit even further behind than the general America. No offense, Chuck. But it's already happening. In Texas, people are afraid, doctors are afraid to do their medical diligence because they're afraid of the consequences. That even though they have their training and they can be vindicated in what they're doing, they are afraid. Women have already died. I know people who are moving because their families, one of my club members is moving to Colorado because his son and his son's wife have a daughter who they don't want that possibility happening to their daughter. So they're choosing to move now rather than wait till the daughter is grown older. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you indeed. This question really is open to anybody, but it doesn't really happen here in Ireland or in England. It is America thing, especially with the present president. What is this, the opposition, if I may call it that, the Democrats? What is it with the president? He calls people names. Like the past president, he called him Sleepy Joe. What type of manner is this? And what good or benefit does it do to a democracy to be like that? If there's anyone here now I haven't mentioned from the States, by all means answer that, but it's open to anybody. What what is the reason for calling people names like Joe Biden is called Sleepy Joe? What benefit is this to a democracy?
Lynn Gilbert would like to take that.
Right, by all means, Lynn, you take that.
You know, I feel so strongly about this. When you ask, is there a benefit? Of course there isn't a benefit. The tragedy is that we have accepted this and we have watched a man who has been in power for 4 years and then he now again is in power. The problem is how has our society reintroduced this man who has done something that is truly amoral? When he spoke about one of the journalists who was handicapped and made fun of him, I mean, that is shocking. The problem is, no, it's not a benefit. And what are we going to do about it as society that has accepted and introduced this man into leadership? That's the problem.
Right. Thank you very much. Paul, can you tell me who else is from America here?
Unfortunately, Matty, we have to call time on topics now.
Okay, that's grand. Thank you all very much for your very good answers indeed. I appreciate you all taking part. And back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Table Topics Director, Matty, and all Table Topics speakers. Timekeeper, please put times of all speeches in the chat.
Yes, and I can announce and also put into the chat.
Thank you very much.
Chuck spoke for 1 minute 35 seconds. Larry for 1 minute and 5 seconds. Bill Hayden 12 seconds. Vicky 1 minute 8 seconds. Angela 1 minute 20 seconds. Rob Peck 1 minute. Nicole 1 minute. Lynn 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. Suddenly we have second prepared speaker. And I'd like to ask second evaluator, Charles Roy Mencke, to introduce the second speech, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toastmaster. Bill Hayden is going to be speaking from the effective presentation mastery, and he's doing the effective body language, which is a level 2 project. And I'm going to be watching for effective body language within his little Zoom square. And I like his title, Democracy, Will It Survive? An Old Man's Perspective.
Thanks, Chuck. I really appreciate Paul letting me know yesterday morning that he wanted me to give a speech, and at 11 o'clock today, allowing me to change the subject. And the speakers in the panel discussion laying out all the problems that we who live in democracies face. But that is not the question. The question that was posed today is, will democracy survive? And I have a line of arguments based on a short contemplation period that will lead from genetics, instinct, and history to a big hell yes, it'll survive. First of all, let's define what an instinct is. A lot of human behavior is controlled by instincts. 3 examples that I will give you. One is the instinct of humor, which has been codified through comedy that we can cause people to laugh. And if you look at the people all over the world, they smile. The second thing is the instinct of curiosity, which has been codified and formalized through the process of the scientific method. And the third I submit is the instinct that humans have for autonomy, self-regulation, and getting together to govern and manage themselves and their groups that they exist in. Instinct is driving democracy throughout history. The second justification about why and if democracy will survive is history. A democracy or forms of it, that is, by the people, of the people, and for the people, as it existed for thousands of years. Let's take justification number one. Look at the picture that's up. I hope it's up. I see Chuck here. This is Abraham Lincoln talking at the Gettysburg Address, part of 15,000 people on that battlefield that he was speaking several months after, laid bodies that have not been able to be buried because 51,000 young Americans died on that day. In the defense of an important principle. Let's take the world wars, where in one day in the Battle of the Bulge, 100,000 Americans and Allied troops died in a few days over Christmas 1944. Let's take the present Ukrainian conflict, where between 50 and 80,000 Ukrainian soldiers and citizens have died in the defense of their democracy. And let's take a look at January 6th, a few years back, where the Capitol building was assaulted by the masses and turned away by a few principled representatives in the Capitol who refused to give in to tyranny. Genetics and the history of war. The evidence is strong that democracy comes from an inherent genetic predisposition for autonomy and the defense of this principle by the people, of the people, and for the people. I also trust democracy for three other reasons. One is its constitution, which assures balance of power, term limits, free speech, and a constant battle for the disabilities, determinants that are going on around us. This dynamic process that is allowed through our Constitution. My simple conclusions are: history and the genetic predisposition of human beings, the battles that have been fought and are being fought, the dynamic nature of the Constitution and the human beings that I see right outside my window this week congregating and all over America, leads me to the conclusion that we need to recognize certainly what the issues are, but to stop whining, whimpering, and worrying about whether democracy is going away. And get busy joining the parade of Americans and people all over the world that are defending it right now and will have to continue to defend the democratic parameters and policies. Will democracy survive? Will it carry on? Hell yes, for a long time. Back to you, Roman.
Thank you very much, Bill, for your great speech. Now, let's have a minute for comments and recommendations to the speaker via chat. Please, Timekeeper, give us 1 minute, please.
1 minute starts now. One minute is up.
Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. We will now have a short break for refreshment, 5 minutes maximum, after which the second part of the meeting will begin. Timekeeper, let us know when the break is over, please.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Dear friends, thank you so much for all of this. Paul, Moira, Vicky, everybody, thank you so much. I have to leave, but blessings to all of you. Elbows up.
Bye, Alex.
Bye-bye, Alex.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Alex. We'll see you around.
Sorry, Madam Timekeeper, correction of the break duration, 4 minutes, please, 4 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole, can I just ask you, how did you hear about this meeting? It's wonderful of you to come. How did you find out?
Paul, Chuck Mencke is my mentor, and he invited myself and another mentee. And I just managed to wangle it in and turn off my work camera so they couldn't see what I was doing.
Oh, that's great. You know, there is this effort by Toastmasters International to get all members to invite a new member to a club during the year. So, Chuck, you've achieved that. Thank you. It's lovely. Robert Neal, my great friend in Nova Scotia in Canada. How are you today?
Oh,
You're doing?
we're doing very well, Juliet. As you know, Paul, but Juliet and I are walking the hills of Shropshire this month. So I'm actually coming to you from Bishop's Castle in Shropshire this evening.
Oh, you know, I completely forgot. I forgot. Have you read Shropshire Lad?
I have read it. I downloaded the book on Apple Books before we came down. I intended to read it on Lemur once a day, one poem, but I left my iPad at home where it's loaded and I can't. And I need my iPad in order to do it. So I'll have to wait till I get back to Nova Scotia.
If anyone's wondering, that's a long poem by A. Houseman.
Yes.
One of the, I think one of the great English poems. And yeah, great. How are you doing, Val? How's life in your part of the world?
Life's fine in my part of the world. Thank you for inviting me tonight, Paul. I might be at Shilling tomorrow, though. I know I'm chucked off the WhatsApp group now, but it's looking quite interesting. I'm not doing anything else tomorrow night, so I might get there.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Let me ask Timothy. Timothy,
yeah.
You're a great speaker. Any thoughts you'd like to share in the break?
Oh, I'm a little less sanguine than you are about the future of democracy in Ireland, partly because you said climate change is a separate issue, and it's not, of course, because as fertile farmland in more hot climates starts drying up, there'll be more and more refugees. And refugees put pressure on the system, and there definitely are undercurrents of racism in Ireland. You see accommodation hallmarked for refugees being targeted by arsonists. Like that, there's definitely problems here. We aren't free of it. But I do think we have better safeguards than most countries. Partly we have the STV voting system, which most countries don't have. And that keeps extremists out most of the time. Our president has almost no power. They're a figurehead, so you don't get the cult of personality around the president, though you would in some places. France, maybe.
I think we have time's up.
So,
sorry.
We have safeguards.
Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. Welcome back, everyone. Time to begin the second part of our meeting. And I'd like to invite Madam General Evaluator Lynn Gilbert to lead this part. The floor is yours, Lynn. Oh, Lynn. I think we are waiting for Lynn. Paul, you are muted, Paul.
Yeah. I tell you what, until Lynn comes back, I'll say the general evaluator is to evaluate everything at the meeting, and let us call on the first of the evaluation team to evaluate the performance of the moderator during the panel discussion. Please welcome the president of Toastmasters, of Blarney Toastmasters, Denis Murphy.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thanks very much to everyone, and welcome back. Okay, now, it is my duty or my honour, indeed, to evaluate as best I can Moira's excellent moderation of the panel discussion. So Moira's brief this evening was to moderate a panel discussion on any topic. As we all saw, in 40 minutes and 15 seconds, Moira moderated on a discussion which navigated the very serious and at this moment in time as well, the very topical and thought-provoking topic of is democracy dead? Well done to you, Moira, on your organisation and your delivery of this panel discussion. You hosted indeed a very engaging and a very captivating panel discussion. You had, Moira, a range of questions prepared, and they were ready, and they were obviously very appropriate. And your questions led to good, challenging topics and food for thought for the three panelists to explain, to discuss the current state of the highs and the lows of democracy in Canada, in the USA, and Ireland right now. The questions that Moira used were very good, as they brought the discussion to the past initially. Then she went on to the present when she asked about minorities, about Indigenous people, about undocumented people, and about the threats to democracy. And finally, she moved along to the future of democracy in Ireland, in the USA, and in Canada. So she kept Moira, you kept the conversation flowing. And of course, it is a very serious topic of conversation. And throughout your moderation, it was treated with appropriate level of professional conversation. This, of course, is not something to be laughed at. Humor would not have been appropriate. So the tone was set very well and with due diligence afforded to the topic at all times. So it was very well conducted. So well done. Moira, just one or two things. Food for thought, we'll say, if you were doing a moderation again on this given subject, maybe to give at the beginning, maybe a more of a briefer or a more in-depth description of maybe what democracy is at the beginning of your speech. Like you did at the end, you summed up democracy, you gave us a brief summary. Maybe at the beginning, if you open it up a little bit more. Paul kind of did it maybe on his first speech. He spoke about what democracy is. He spoke about the judiciary, etc., where people can vote. Maybe if you give that, it would set the tone maybe a little bit better. Moira, and I know you did give one or two facts. You said that 42% of the world's population now live under autocratic rule, etc. But maybe if you extended your opening, it might have set the tone a little bit better. Just food for thought maybe on that one, Moira. And also, if throughout the speech I felt there was an imbalance of speaking time between some of the panelists. So maybe if you give each question a maximum time of, for example, 2 or 3 minutes, that would kind of keep the speaking time afforded to each of your 3 guests more appropriate. That's just something maybe which might be looked at for future reference, Moira. So, in conclusion, this was indeed a very effective panel discussion. Moira led it very effectively. Also, of course, I must acknowledge that she was very ably assisted by her 3 wonderful panelists, Alex, Vicky, and Paul. So they were very well able, very knowledgeable panelists who had obviously their homework done and were very up to date on the chosen topic of democracy. So well done, Moira. It was indeed a job very well done, very interesting topic, and hats off to you and your 3 panelists. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Back to our general evaluator.
Lynn. Yes. I thought this was a remarkable meeting, and the level of the people in this group was extraordinary. And each
sorry, Lynn, apologies for interrupting you, but it's we haven't come to your own general evaluation yet. The next step is to invite the second evaluator, who is Chuck.
Oh, Chuck. Okay, Chuck, I'm inviting you to speak on the next person who is you're introducing. I'm sorry, you know what, you'll have to help me with this, Paul. I'm not reading.
It's just Bill Hayden's speech. Chuck Chuck is going to evaluate Bill Hayden's speech.
Thank you. Chuck, would you evaluate Bill Hayden's speech, please? Paul said it very well.
Thank you so much. I would be privileged to evaluate my friend's speech. Democracy, will it survive? An old man's perspective. There's going to be really very little I can vindicate Bill on of not doing for this project. The project was effective body language, and you know, when you think of effective body language, you're going to have your arms up, you're going to be making points, you're going to be doing this, you're going to want point 1, point 2, point 3. Now, Bill didn't do a lot of that, but with the framing of his face and the effective facial expressions, I feel that he fulfilled the project because it was very dynamic, the way he was coming to us, very sincere and very forceful, even at the end, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Great introduction, and he, started this out with a definition. So we were all on the same page of instinct. And instinct during democracy through history, he went through a timeline. And I love that he had the Gettysburg Address behind him. You know, government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. And that is so true. Even though it's challenged right now, it's going to survive. And as I put in there, I think democracy, they said it's the grand experiment. It's always evolving, it's always changing, and you're never going to know what came out at the end. Now, one thing I would say is he was close to the camera, so if he pulled back a little bit, he might have been able to incorporate some more of the hand gestures and body gestures. But the way he did it was so dynamic. The way he is right now, you're not going to focus on this. You're not going to focus on what this hand's doing, what this hand's doing. You're going to focus on Bill's face and the expressions that he's giving. The dynamic pauses, and he talks about this constantly in our weekly meeting in the United States, and he comes to dynamic pauses. He is the king of those. They are so effective, and he allowed his points to be able to sink in and let us digest them. Let us think about them for a minute before he moved on to another one. The call to action at the end was phenomenal. Basically, it was get off your damn butts and do something if you don't like what's going on, because that's the only way democracy will survive, if people get out and do something. Very powerful presentation with lots of nuggets of wisdom for us, the audience, to take away. Thank you, Bill, for that dynamic presentation.
Back to you, General Evaluator.
Okay, the next person is that's speaking is the third person is Matty. Matty voting for humorous. The thing about Matty's. I'm sorry.
Lynn,
Yeah.
the next person is the next evaluator, who is the grammarian, please.
Oh, okay. The next one is a grammarian who is Vince Hindson, who did a remarkable job and whose language is beautiful, and his pacing was elegant, and his emphasis was extraordinary.
Lynn, your role is to call Vince to give his report.
Sorry, Vince, I hope you give your report. My apologies.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. The ballerina danced the performance of a lifetime tonight. It was spectacular listening to everybody's contributions this evening, and it was absorbing the way everybody put so much heart and soul into how they spoke. On the question of word of the day, I was a bit disappointed that we only had 6 people who I noted made it. That was Moira, Alex, Vicky, Chuck, Larry, and Nicole. If I've missed you out, I do apologize. But again, thank you for weaving in quite a tough word. Seeing the ballerina after her performance, I did notice some small boot marks on her delicate shoes, along with some small bruises on her shins. I'll leave the ums and the ahs for the counter. But some points about clear enunciation. When we're talking about things that are going to be okay, they're going to be okay. They're not gonna be okay. It's not G-U-N-N-A. And also, when we talk about meetings, that word has a G at the end of it. It does not have, the end of it is not I-N apostrophe. So please, can we make an effort to sharpen up our enunciation? However, I don't want to leave you with such a on such a negative point. There were some lovely phrases and quotes and words used tonight, and I'd just like to highlight some by the contributions. Tamara, very early on, she used the phrase touch our hearts. Moira, specifically 2 quotes or 2 things you said. You talked about piquing your interest, as well as the quote, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Vicky, you came up with a phrase, one voice can change the world. Very hopeful. And also, I love the word gerrymandering. It's a word we hear from the US quite a lot, and it's just good to hear it explained to a larger audience. Alex, you used a couple of great words tonight. Malarkey, which made me smile, and also myriad, which is much misunderstood by many people, but used in its complete correct context. I should also add, I noticed that Paul also used a word vigilant, which I did enjoy as well. So that is my report for this evening's wonderful meeting. I pass it back to you, Madam General Evaluator. Thank you.
It was a wonderful evaluation. Now, the next person on the list is and I'm sorry because the next person is Matty. The result.
Lynn, the next person is Tamara Evans, the R counter.
Okay, the R counter. Paul, you better do it because I'm not. Okay.
Okay. Tamara's next, yeah.
Okay, you're next.
I won't take long because I think that counting these little slips would be more appropriate when the group is smaller and people focus more on delivery. Today was an unusual topic. It touched mostly our mind, not that much our heart. I'm talking about myself. So I was listening very carefully, not always trying to count, trying to understand, trying to think and contemplate what can each of us as a person do to solve this problem. And it's an individual decision. Everybody chooses his or her own way, own response to the problem. And I know that in the end, President always asks to give an opinion briefly. So I have something which I will probably save when that moment comes, with your permission. Thank you.
General Evaluator?
Okay.
Would you like to call the timer?
Yes, I would like to call the timer. And I'm not sure who the timer. I'm sorry, Paul. Whoever is timer. Let's see. Violeta, you tell us about time. Who did what?
Thank you, General Evaluator. So the first evaluator was Denis, and his evaluation time is 4 minutes, 11 seconds. The second evaluator was Chuck, and his evaluation time is 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Grammarian's report, Vince, is spot on, exact 3 minutes. And yes, brilliant. And our counter, Tamara, gave her report for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Thank you, and back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you for an excellent report. And the next person is the I believe, is the president.
No, the next person is your own general evaluation, Lynn. Overall,
Okay.
over to you.
I'm going to say something. This, for me, I thought was an extraordinary meeting, and it was very different. I'm relatively new. It's only a year and a half, but I found this group, the level of the group today, the level is good in Blarney. It's very high. This is a group of educated, very caring, very well-spoken people. But today was at a level that was, to me, really unique. We had something that I've never seen before. It was a debate. And the preparation that was presented was really fantastic. Now, Roman introduced a theme of standing up for yourself. And in democracy, we're standing up for ourselves, but in a group. So it ties together. The parts were tied together. And when you have, like a Violeta, timing is timing, and you introduced it very well. You showed how it was done. Now, Vincent, Vince Hindson, I've never met you before. Your presentation to me was extraordinary, and your use of language was very eloquent, and your ability to listen. Tamara, you mentioned something. You're always a good listener. You're a good speaker. And what you introduced to part of this was about how we should each listen. And the counting is counting, but it was done thoroughly and well and very precisely. And Moira, your introduction to, and again, I can't compete with what was done so incredibly well, but the fact that you picked a topic, it tied together with speaking for ourselves, and you introduced in a way different people, you asked different people. It was constructed beautifully so that there were three parts to it: Canada, America, I can't see my notes, but anyhow, it's three parts which were done well. And the people who did the speaking within that were very well prepared, because it introduced history, it introduced about each country, and it introduced what can we do. And the come away from it is, we each have to take responsibility. And what was interesting is how this meeting was developed. It was constructed, but as Paul said in the beginning, that we were taking a little bit too much time for introducing each one. What that represented is that he had the ability to speak up, and that we have to be flexible. And that's also what we have to do with democracy. It's speak up and be flexible, but figure out a way that we are actually going to do it. Now, each of the speeches that Bill, you always speak brilliantly. And the fact is that if you were doing yours with gestures and whatever, I'm always of a feeling is that it separate the message from the messenger. And you deliver always a powerful message, and you did it, as I always say, brilliantly. And if I'm missing anybody here, my apologies. But, I want to add for Matty, it was terrific. Your questions illuminated in a very pragmatic way what are the issues, and asked in a way that was a challenge and gave depth to the answers without being intimidating, so that whoever answered it could do it with grace. I thought this was, even though there were a lot, and Vicky, I think your answers, I don't know you, I think your answers were fabulous. And each of the people here who contributed did a beautiful job. And I hope from my personally, I hope you all come back, because I felt privileged to be amongst you all. I don't know whether I should add something personally like this, but it was a very great meeting. And I apologize for not handling my role well. I'm thinking, okay, I hadn't printed out the thing. I just printed it out before and I didn't see it too well. So thank you for your tolerance of me. And I thought it was wonderful.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I'm next on the agenda, and in my role as club officer, and I've got one thing to say, and only one thing to say to you all. The next meeting of the club will be in 2 weeks' time, on the 22nd of April. And I'd like to invite you all back to that meeting. And I now would like you to welcome our great president, Denis Murphy.
Thanks very much, Paul. Again, thanks very much to everyone for everyone's contribution to what was an absolutely fantastic meeting here tonight on Blarney Toastmasters Online Club. Before we pull the curtain down on tonight's meeting officially, at the end of every meeting in Blarney, we just fly around the room and we take a couple of seconds from every one of our guests just for a bit of feedback on how they felt the meeting went for them and how they found the meeting as they sat through our meeting tonight. So we'll begin with you, Violeta. You're up in the top left of my screen there, so we'll work in order. How did you find the meeting went tonight, Violeta?
That was a very great meeting for me. Very many different and very interesting information. I did really enjoy the panel discussion and heard different points that I haven't heard before, and it broadened my knowledge on the democracy and its roots. And the speeches, they were very interesting to listen to, because you know yourself that these days we're bombarded with information and it's very difficult to follow everyone and everywhere. So I did really enjoy it. This was like an eye-opener to me. Thank you very much for inviting, and I do really come back to your meetings as a guest. Thank you.
Very good. Always welcome in Blarney, Violeta. Thank you. The next person on my screen there is Val. Hi, Val. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Paul. It's great to be invited to your meetings. It was a big meeting tonight. I find it quite difficult when there's so many people there because you can't see them all on the screen. And the other thing I would say is that I tried to find you on Easy Speak to enter the meeting, and you don't seem to be on Easy Speak these days.
Oh, we most certainly are on Easy Speak UK and Ireland version.
Oh, I looked there and I clicked on all meetings and it didn't say Blarney at all.
Well, if you go to a club, search for club and go that way,
Yeah.
you'll find us.
Oh, well, anyway, I got here because Paul always keeps me informed. He's a very friendly guy.
Excellent. And thank you, Val, and thanks for being with us again tonight. Great to see you. We'll move along. Timothy Green. Hi, Timothy. How are you?
I'm good. I don't think I've ever been to a normal Blarney meeting. I've been to this one. I was at your special anniversary one. I've been at a couple of special things. I want to go to a normal one day. I enjoy the energy here.
Yeah,
and
excellent.
The light was very good.
I think the easy answer to that, Timothy, is that there is no such thing as a normal meeting in Blarney. They're all fun, all action. So it's great. You're welcome anytime, Timothy. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. We'll move over to Canada now, to Rob Peck. Hi, Rob.
Hi there, Denis. I must say I really, really enjoyed the meeting. And to me, it just proves the importance of Toastmasters because combined with Zoom, I think it's a chance for us all to get together, to talk to each other, and to realize that we are all part of the human family, and we need to cut each other some slack and be nice. So thanks again for the invitation, and I had a wonderful time.
Very well spoken, very well said, Robert. Fantastic. We'll move over to Nicole in Texas. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the meeting and I appreciate you guys inviting us foreigners to come as well. I'm with a progressive club in Dallas, but it's nice to get some other input because we're definitely in a Republican area. So it's nice to get some other input from other folks, and I'm leaving feeling much more positive and that we're not alone, and keep motivated and do the right thing, like Bill said.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Very good. And you're never alone, Nicole. We look forward to seeing you again soon too. Next up on my screen, there is Vince. Hi, Vince.
Sorry about that. It's just clicking several times and nothing was happening. Yes, thank you again for having me this evening. It's been a pleasure. It's my second time at Blarney, and thanks to Paul. It's great. I was allowed to give a speech last time, and this time I just wanted to give something back by taking on a role. It was very enlightening for me to see such a panel as part of a Toastmasters meeting. I'm still only a couple of years into this journey, so it was a bit of a surprise to see that. And it was very good, very well exercised. And beforehand, I didn't quite see what it was trying to achieve. But by the end of the meeting or by the end of the session, I could really see what the panel discussion was trying to put together. So that was good to see. And you get a lot of experience from that by seeing what was put together tonight. So again, thank you for having me on tonight.
Well, thank you for being with us, Vince. Next up, we have our second Rob from Canada. Come in there for us, Robert. How are you?
How are you? I'm very good. I very much enjoyed the discussion today. Obviously, it's very timely. Although I'm from Canada, I'm currently on a walking holiday in Shropshire in England. And this discussion has been very much an extension of a lot of my experiences here in meeting people, because the topic or subtopics related to this larger topic have been the subject of conversation with the people I meet in pubs, conversations with new people I've met in pubs, or on the walking trails in Shropshire. So it's a topic that's very much on everyone's minds. And I won't take a lot of your time, but it's been a pleasure to meet some delightful personalities here. It's the second time I've attended a Toastmasters meeting as a guest at Paul's invitation. And I'm just about persuaded to seek to become a member after these two experiences as a guest. And just one final note to our American friends on the call. Thank you for participating. And as I noted in the comments, I'm very encouraged by the nascent democratic resistance that is emerging in the United States. And I know you'll come through it in alliance with all of us across the world who also love democracy. Cheers.
Thank you, Robert. That's fantastic news, Robert, that you'll be joining, and enjoy your walking tour as well while you're in Shropshire, Robert. So we'll talk to you soon. Next up on my screen is OG. Hello, OG.
104% tariffs are set to go into effect on China at midnight. The White House says China wants to make a deal, but they don't know how to get it started. What is the government of China saying, and how will these massive tariffs impact the overall?
Hello, OG.
Denis, I don't think OG will be able to speak.
Maybe not. I think there's a television or something on in the background as well, Paul. So we'll move along. Gita. Hi, Gita. No, maybe not as well, I think. Oh, sorry. Yes.
He's on the phone, I think.
He's on the phone. Very good. Okay. Who we got left? We've Venice Rowe in the UK. Hi, Venice. Hello, Venice. Maybe not. And we have Tamara Evans, of course, is there in the middle of the screen as well. Hi, Tamara. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I promise that I'm saving something for the final opportunity to speak. You know, frankly speaking, this topic is not my cup of tea. I'm not rejecting, I'm not criticizing. I appreciate the energy, the efforts which a lot of people invested into preparing this evening today, but it's just not mine. And in the probably famous book by Walsh, which is called Conversations with God, it says that if you don't feel comfortable with something, don't reject, don't criticize, just pick something different. If what I remembering from that same book, interesting thought that everything people do in this world is motivated by two contrary powers, either by love or by fear. And of course, when we are motivated with love, we do something which helps us feel vibrant and helps everybody else around us feel vibrant. And I decided that I will share. I was thinking, what can I do? What would be my contribution, real contribution today to inspire my friends from Blarney Club? And I thought that I will share a little poem which I wrote thanks to inspiration from Paul, who invited me to participate in this project, A Month of Poetry. Every day you're supposed to write a poem in April, 30 days. And I started thinking in advance, what if I won't be able to write every day? I better have some cushion. It would I started before. And so one little poem, which is called Sharing Love. When we receive a word of love, or smile, or friendly wave, we feel so joyous that inside we press the button save. And then on gloomy days, we try to share this token of love. We do our best to help the rest feel sunshine from above. Thank you.
What a way to close down our meeting. You have, we've gone out with a bang. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Tamara, and thanks very much to everyone here in the room tonight. I hope you all enjoyed the meeting, and we hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks very much. So we'll stop our recording now.
Oh, yeah. Yes, what we do